For nearly 50 years, Austin Community Foundation has been a trusted partner in local philanthropy for individuals, families, and businesses looking to do good in Central Texas. And Austin Community Foundation is inviting you to Austin in Common on Tuesday, April 14th at ACL Live Movie Theater. Austin in Common is more than a fundraising event. It's an opportunity to connect, celebrate, and invest in a brighter future for the city we call home. And by attending or sponsoring this event, you're not just supporting a cause, you're strengthening the foundation of Austin itself. Details are at austinincommon.org. Celebrate 35 years of art in nature at the Umlauf Sculpture Garden and Museum's Garden Party fundraiser on April 16th. Enjoy an al fresco evening among sculpture with bites from Austin's best restaurants and live music, all while supporting a treasured nonprofit in the heart of Austin. Umlauf members receive a special discount on Garden Party tickets. So visit umlaufsculpture.org to learn more about membership, buy tickets to the Garden Party, and to see their calendar of upcoming community events. Today on CityCast Austin, South by Southwest is officially over. And I want to know, was it a success? My guest today had a front row seat, knew just exactly what was at stake, and has some thoughts. It's Monday, March 23rd. I'm Nikki Devon, and this is what Austin's talking about. Hello, I am here with Dan Solomon, senior writer for Texas Monthly. Hi, Dan. Thanks for being on with us.
Thanks for having me.
I have been following your reporting on South by Southwest, and then after the festival, you and Andy Langer wrote a post-mortem for Texas Monthly. So what was at stake at this year's South by, and how did they do? How did they fare?
I mean, I think the stakes were, does what they're doing now work? They were pretty high because the festival changed a lot, really, but it changed in multiple ways. It didn't just go from, a 10-day festival or a 9-day festival to a 7-day festival. It didn't just lose the convention center. They also let go of a lot of the senior leadership that had overseen the festival for years. Including Hugh Forrest, and he'd been running Interactive since the 90s and had recently taken over leadership of the whole festival in the post-pandemic era. And so this was really a year of reinvention where they're now fully controlled by Penske Media Group. They invested after the pandemic, after South by lost 2 years of revenue. They needed to take on an outside investor. They initially had a 50-50 split with that investor, and then they bought the extra 1% that they needed to take full control. And so this is really the first year of South by Southwest that we've seen as a vision other than the people who've been doing South by Southwest for many, many years. And so in that way, it's really a make it or break it. And it's also a make it or break it because the changes that happened didn't happen in a vacuum. They didn't happen for no reason. They happened because the festival's been struggling since the pandemic to be as profitable and as relevant as it was in the decade before that, when it was really a global driver of culture. Like, you can't overstate, I think, how important South by was globally for a good stretch of the 2010s, a little bit before and then throughout.
Wow. I guess I just did not know that part of it. I knew it was a big year, but I didn't know that was a part of it too. Now, one big storyline out of the festival this year was what it would be like without the convention center. I know for one, I definitely was like, there's no way this will work just because I've gotten so used to it for so many years. South by Southwest existed before the convention center and used kind of like a clubhouse approach this year to mimic the convention center feel for each track separately. And so I have kind of like a double-sided question. Does South by Southwest need the convention center, or is it that the convention center needs South by Southwest? Because I don't think the two are the same.
I think that it's good for South by Southwest to have a central base.
I
don't know that it's necessary. I think that it's nice to have a spot where, especially because so many of the programming choices, you're like, okay, do I want to see this or do I want to see that? And maybe you go into a session and you're like, this one sounds more interesting. I'll see this. And then you're there for 20 minutes and you're like, oh, this is a snooze fest. I'm out. And the one I want to see, the other one I was thinking about is down the hall, a 3-minute walk. So let's try that
Right.
one. And that's always been one of the nice things about having everything very centrally located. If you have to go from, the JW Marriott to the, wherever the downright Austin, which is, like a 3/4 mile walk, then you don't get to have that sort of same flexibility. So, as a consumer experience, it's less convenient. But, everyone talks about like the magic of South by Southwest is that you never know who you're going to run into. And
Right.
the convention center facilitated that because everybody was there, not just was there, but was there with purpose. Everyone was there because they were trying to see or occasionally give talks. And when you lose that, like the clubhouses, I thought they were cool. I liked the clubhouses. And I thought it was really neat that you go and there's, like people kind of milling around and there's the kind of light brand activation stuff where like, okay, yeah, I'll take some glasses cleaner from some company I've never heard of and, get a quick pitch on that. And they've got pinball machines. I'll play Judge Dredd pinball.
Exactly.
Pretty good at Judge Dredd pinball. That was fun. And so like they were cool, but they also, I don't know what they were for. Like there was no imperative to be there. It was just kind of a place to be. And I like whimsy, so I'm not mad about it, but I also don't think you're going to necessarily have like all of the same serendipitous conversations because you can only meet people who are willing to hang out in a spot for no reason rather than people who are hanging out in a spot because they're waiting for the next thing to start. And that's just a change.
Yeah. Man, that you're hitting the nail on the head for me, honestly. It's like it just felt diminished. It felt different. There was nothing specifically that I was like, this is the time that made me feel like it wasn't the same. The vibe was just different for me. So South by Southwest started in 1987 and kind of grew up with Austin, to this exciting, buzzing, kind of in the forefront of everything experience. And then, of course, the pandemic hit. And I don't feel like we've ever gotten our groove back, but from your lens, like how bad was the pandemic? Did it really change South by Southwest forever, do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are a couple of different factors that all happened at the exact same time. So the pandemic meant that they lost 2 years of revenue, which means that they had to take on an outside investor, which they hadn't done in any significant way before. They'd taken on one small investor a couple of years earlier that owned like a non-controlling interest that ended up becoming important later because that small investor sold 1% of their stake to Penske, which is what allowed Penske to take control. But they'd never had any interference. It was run like a family business by the people who started it. It was a festival that, it was really the founders' festival. And so that was a huge change to have leadership that wasn't the same people who'd been doing it for all those years. And I've talked to some people, and like there's a loss of, Austin identity or however you want to call it when the locals are out and a group from California is in. But there are also people who've worked with South by, even people who are, friendly to occasionally even are the original owners who are like, yeah, we kind of ran it too much like a family business. So
yeah, some of the conversations that I'm hearing is, blaming this change of South by Southwest on the leadership. Has it affected the festival's local feel at all for you?
I mean, I think in kind of small like ways on the margins, maybe, or ways that are almost invisible to the, to like the average local. I mean, the people who run the thing, the people who make the day-to-day programming decisions or the day-to-day decisions about, which streets they're going to request closures for. Like those people are all local. They've been here for a long time. Yeah. So that isn't, that I don't think is like a dramatic change. There's some marginal changes around like, the people who really had deep relationships with all of the hotels in town aren't there anymore. So,
Right.
now new people have to have to make those arrangements, and maybe they make them differently. And they, there's like there's a loss of some institutional knowledge that I think probably hurt the festival. But I don't think that the average Austinite who wants to check out a couple of things is going to notice them, at least not this year. Maybe those things have like an impact further down the road. The pandemic also robbed it of 2 years of like cultural relevance. If every year it's this great, exciting party, then you're thinking, I've got to get to the next one, especially if you're young. If you're a college student and you're thinking where you're going to go for spring break, and every year you see that, Drake is headlining Fader Fort or Kendrick Lamar, exactly. You got all of these superstars in town and they're playing these tiny stages, and you're just like, I could just go and see Drake for free. Like, I want to do that. That sounds great. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And then 2 years go by and that doesn't happen. And then, if you're 19, you're like, oh, was that a thing? I never really heard about it. And so it loses some of that cachet. And then the other factor here that I think is really important is that everybody stopped spending in the way that they had. We saw interest rates go from like negative interest rates for, where money was free. So if you wanted to put on, if you're Doritos and you want to put Lady Gaga in a giant Doritos vending machine, you've got a budget for it. You can do weird
you do it.
stuff.
You do it.
You could do it. You could say, you know what? We're going to get Prince. He's going to play La Zona Rosa, and we're going to pay him $1 million for that gig. And it's only going to be available to American Express or Samsung. I think that was Samsung,
Right. If you can get there, you can get there.
And if you get a lottery for tickets, and if you're there, you have something that like everybody wishes they were at, and you got to go, and we're going to make dreams come true. And that stuff stopped happening. There were some bigger acts this year, which I know was a real focus. Like, let's bring some hype back. But even that works differently when you're in a different environment, when you don't have, hundreds of thousands of people who came to town without planning on spending any money, who don't have badges or wristbands, who are just like, I know there's going to be a huge party and I want to try and get into it. When you have that base of interest, then, like Lainey Wilson, for example, country star Lainey Wilson, she's a huge star. And she played on, I think, Tuesday night this year at Stubbs, and she played for free. That was a no badges, open to the public show. And if you do that in the past, if you put a megastar in a small-ish venue, like if Lainey Wilson is touring, she's not playing Stubbs, she's playing, a venue 3-4 times the size of Stubbs, and they got it about half full. And that's because there isn't the same, the audience that would have lined up around the block for that, 7 years ago, they weren't even in town. And so that's the difference. That's the thing that isn't happening now. I think that maybe in the 2010s, in the peak South by era, I'll call it, there was kind of a sense that South by was the wave and everybody else was surfing it. And I think that free money and low interest rates and these mega budgets for all of these brands, that was actually the wave. And South by was the board and we were the surfer. I'm going to lose my metaphor here, but
we're getting it though.
But the South by was not the one that was driving everything. It just looked like they were because everybody was coming to them. But
they
ultimately,
got it on
it was
the right
about
time.
The money. Yeah, they were a thing at a time. When people had a lot of money to spend, they were a place to spend it. And right now, without that money, it is different.
I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I am wearing a Dewar rugby shirt right now. I'm also wearing my sand-colored stretch canvas Dewar pants, which I also wore yesterday too. Dewar's denim and lifestyle apparel is made for us to move freely without sacrificing comfort or style. So I had a long trip a few weeks ago, and I wore my Dewar performance denim jeans on the flight. They're so stretchy and comfortable. Then I wore them for a full day of sightseeing, and then I wore them out to a fancy dinner. Dewar's performance denim are the only jeans you need for work, for lounging at home, or on the go. Dewar uses Cool Max fibers that help regulate your temperature so you don't feel like you're overheating. Plus, their jeans are antimicrobial, so you can wear them more and more between washes and they still stay fresh. I know you'll love Dewar as much as I do, so it's time for you to get your own pair. Check out shopdewar.com/CCAustin. You'll get 15% off your first order. Don't wait. Go to shopdewar.com/CCAustin for 15% off. Shopdewar.com/CCAustin.
Hey y'all, have you gotten your fast free estimate from Window Nation yet? If not, no worries. You can do it right now. And now is the best time because the more you buy, the more savings you can enjoy, like up to 50% off of all window styles. And they have financing options, including $0 down and payments as little as $199 a month. And just in case you haven't heard what Window Nation is bringing to the table, they have an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, a 50-point inspection of every window before it leaves the factory, a 20-point inspection of every window when it's installed, a 96% customer satisfaction rating, and of course, that sweet lifetime warranty on all of their windows. You can have your new windows installed in 1 day or less, and the installation crew leaders are working with over a decade of experience. So head on over to windownation.com now to get that estimate.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the Political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the three of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the Political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
I'm curious about something else. There's a sort of magic with South by where, if you're lucky, some friend of a friend of a friend will tell you, hey, Lainey Wilson is playing for free over at Stubbs. We're all going to go. Meet us there. Or you'll round the corner and you will see Lizzo playing the flute on a stage that's way too small. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the magic of South by. It's like even in tandem with having these big mega stars, you also had these moments where you could really just stumble upon something incredible. And I think that that's one of the things that kept locals going, is that it's like you just, after a while, you know where to go and you kind of know where to look, and you don't know what's going to happen. And that was missing for me this year. And I think that it's because the culture of Austin is changing a little bit. And so I'm curious what you think about that. Do you think that that has contributed to the magic waning a little bit?
I mean, I think that the makeup of the city has changed, and there are fewer people who know how to do South by Southwest the way you describe it, which I think is that does take some of the magic out. I do think those experiences can still happen, but people have to know how to do it, which is different, because I think that we had a generation of people who were just kind of trained on show up on East 6th somewhere and you'll see something great, and you'll meet some people you can follow to the next thing, and somebody's going to have a hookup that's going to tell them 20 minutes in advance what the next best thing is.
Yes.
And that you aren't going to have those experiences in the same way when people don't know how the event works, because it's really unique. There's nothing else like it,
Yeah.
There's all of this music and half of it's free, and some of the people who are playing these free shows are world famous, and you just are going to meet people who are going to know a little bit more than you. And these days that just happens less. And so that's a challenge. But I do think those experiences still happen. I went to the Rivian dealership on South Congress, and
yes,
just because I wanted to see music in the afternoon, and there's a local Austin band who I'd heard good things about who were playing, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna go stop in at the Rivian dealership and go see Next of Kin play. And
yes.
I ride my bike down to the dealership and walk in, and they play and they sound amazing. And I'm having a great time. And they say, we're playing tonight at Continental Club and, 14 other shows this week. So I went to Continental Club because I thought this was great. I want to have this experience again. And like, so that sort of thing where you just are like, okay, I'm going to see a band. I'm going to see, I didn't know what this sounded like, and now I'm in love with it. That can still happen, but it does require a little bit more like experience, maybe of like, I mean, there were years in the past where I would see somebody play 7 times because I'm like, okay, this is great.
Same.
Like,
yeah,
I'm catching every one of your sets. This is so cool. And if you don't know that that's an option, then you're not thinking that way. And so fair. I think that's that coaching the generation of people who lost the years of South by when it was either not happening or pretty small comparatively. I think that coaching them up to like, now this is how you can do it and have a really good time. I think that is actually more important than maybe I gave it credit for. Because that is the thing that lets you have those experiences. And, maybe it's not Drake, but like, does it need to be Drake? Does it need to be Fader for it?
Doesn't. Yeah.
Or can you go see, the Downright Hotel was the music clubhouse. And so they had, free music open to everybody on the lawn there all day, every day. And like, I went in there, I saw, this really great band from the UK called Radium Dolls. I saw Los Lobos played, to a packed house at this just 3:30 in the afternoon on a Monday. And, like there's Los Lobos just, like that rules. That's the thing.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff. That's the stuff.
And that still happens. Like I saw it and and you didn't even need a badge for any of it. And the other part of that, I think, is that people get intimidated by South by Southwest because they're still kind of thinking of it as like this, explosion of, Ferris wheels and Lady Gaga and somebody's going to put in a petting zoo and, and they're like, oh, that sounds like a lot of stress. I don't want to go down there for that. And aside from the road closures, like this was a pretty chill time to be downtown, all things considered.
It really was. And which also, you're stumbling right into my next question. Officials told us that they were really trying to make the festival more appealing to locals this year. Do you think they succeeded?
I mean, I think that certain locals, yeah. There's always a contingent of locals who hear South by Southwest and are like, stay away from that. That's crazy. And I think that that's based on old information or old experiences. One thing that I've found really interesting is that, there's like this idea, it's going to take over the whole city. And actually like the places that are close in but not like downtown are kind of deader than ever during South by because the locals stay away and the visitors aren't going to travel that far. So you're like, oh wow, I can just walk right up to East MLK and like there's a table for me there. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that that's kind of like like the thing is not what it was when you're imagining like the South by Southwest of 2016 or something, right? Where it's like, oh, there are an extra 150,000 people on the street and traffic is going to take me, 1 million hours to get anywhere. Like, traffic is traffic. Austin is not great with that, but like it is a pretty manageable experience.
I made sure to get out in the city every day during South by. And there were several times that I was like, where is everybody? And normally during South by, I'll run into at least 4 people I know a day, right? Because just like other locals, like, can you believe this? Yep, we're out in it. Oh, well, like have a good time. Or we go to a show together. That didn't happen this year. And then there were several times, honestly, where I was just like, there's no one, not just in this spot, but on this side of, like, where is everybody at? 9 times out of 10, when I would go where there was movies, that's where everybody would be. So like, it was like, when I was over by the Paramount, lines were crazy. Like it was so busy. Rollins Theater, so busy. And so it made it seem like to me that the most popular or relevant track this year was TV and film, because those were the only times that I saw like lines. Was that also your experience?
Yeah. I mean, I think that TV and film has more star power than anything else, including because the music stars who were there were also there for TV and film. Like Lainey Wilson, has a documentary. Charlie Crockett has a documentary. Jack Johnson has a documentary. They all played the festival. The Jack Johnson show was sold out. Like they those were a big draw too. But you could also see them in music and film, and you can also see Paul Rudd or like Boots Riley brought the entire cast of
Boosters,
of Boosters, like you get to see famous people and you get to see cool movies. The programming is very strong there. Hollywood still sees South by Southwest as something essential to what it does. It occupies a good role in the calendar. It comes after Sundance, so movies that either aren't quite Sundancey or movies that are just opening, that aren't ready in time for Sundance, that are opening a little bit later.
Right.
South by is the next stop on the calendar, and there are 4, maybe 5 like major North American film festivals, and South by is one of them. And so that's really important. And they've done a really good job of maintaining their relationships within that community. Filmmakers who come to South by Southwest have a really good time. The crowds are really good.
Yeah.
And so that feeds itself. So the film festival is, I think, thriving. There's a caveat to that, which is that that's also an industry that's in some flux. Streamers don't make money. That's okay if the streamer is Apple or Amazon because they make lots of money other ways. But if the streamer is Paramount Plus, they're mostly debt financing. And so that's a different thing. It's more expensive to make things now than it was during the peak years. South by is positioned to have conversations about that. There were lots of panels about, a TV and film industry in flux right now. And that's also something that I think attracts talent, is that they want to have those conversations. I don't think that we're, going to witness the heat death of the entertainment industry tomorrow. But there are headwinds there that have nothing to do with South by Southwest. But the film festival is probably the strongest, most stable part right now.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think that there's already South bys internationally.
Yes.
And the plan is to have more, evidently. So why do we need a South by Southwest in London? Why do we need a South by Southwest? I think the other one is in Australia, right? Sydney?
It used to be, yeah. They canceled it in February.
They canceled
did 3
it.
years.
Okay. So the plan is to have more. Do you think Austin is no longer unique enough to avoid being replicated like that? And you've been. Is it even a replication, or is it something different?
It's a replication to the extent that there's panels and music and movies and, all kind of happening at once. Sydney was a different vibe than Austin, mostly because Sydney is a huge city geographically, population wise. And they put that festival kind of in the heart of downtown Sydney. And downtown Sydney is not like downtown Austin. If you dropped a 2015 South by Southwest size event in the heart of Sydney, it would still be like, oh yeah, I think I heard something about that, as opposed to daily life has ground to a halt while everybody waits for Lady Gaga to get out of the Doritos machine. And London was a little bit different because they concentrated it all in Shoreditch, which is a cool, East London neighborhood. And concentrating it all in one area did allow the festival to sort of take over. You would see badges everywhere, people who weren't involved in South by and maybe had no idea what it was. By the end of the week, they were 10% discount for South by Southwest badge holders, just sort of doing those things. Okay, I see what's going on here. These are a lot of people. Let's sell them some stuff. And, that's classic South by. So, in that way, it felt more like it. But I don't think that this really challenges South by Austin, but I went to learn about that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the experience I had. I think that they're generally kind of nice experiences. They're fun. When I was in Sydney, I met a couple at the very first screening. I went to the opening night film screening. I met a couple in line. And Australians are very friendly, so you talk to everybody. London, it's a different experience.
Yeah.
And they, worked in local government in New South Wales and were telling me about, like, oh yeah, we went last year. We had such a great time that we decided we had to go to Austin and see the big one, and so they went to the South by Southwest here, and
That's awesome.
The husband got really into barbecue and was watching like Aaron Franklin videos on YouTube and was like, okay, we're going to go and I'm going to stand in that line. And like, that's amazing.
Wow.
As marketing for the city of Austin, that, that South by Sydney, RIP, or South by London can be also marketing for Austin. I think, and like, some people will want to go to multiples. And I think there are very few people who are going to go to London and say, okay, well, I never need to go to Austin. Or if they did, they would go to Austin once and they'd be done too. So that's kind of my read on it, is that it's probably a good thing. It's also, frankly, South by is a business as well as a event. And it's good for the business because they don't put in a lot of expense putting these on. The South by, the international editions are owned by other companies, and South by licenses their name, their expertise, and members of their team to put it on. So as a company that needs to have more revenue models, because as we learned in 2020 and 2021, having one festival a year and that being your entire revenue model is fragile.
Yes.
And so if you have, 4 is the number they want. If you have 4 events a year and 3 of them are pure profit, then you've got a more stable business. And I want South by to have a stable business because I think it's good for the city.
Well, and again, this brings me to my next question. Do you think it'll make it?
Yeah, I think that if they decide that they are going to continue investing in it, there's no reason to stop now. I guess what it really comes down to, and I've never been able to get like the clearest possible answer for this, but if Penske thought that they were buying the South by 2016 and that they were going to have that, and that's what they were, that's what they were going to be putting on every year, then they must be disappointed, because it is not like that. It's going to be a little smaller for a while because the world is a little smaller right now. We didn't even get into the fact that like international attendees are hesitant to come to the United States right now, but that's a factor. So you say, okay,
a huge factor.
A huge factor. So you say, okay, right now, all 3 of the industries that are at the heart of this festival are in flux. I've heard that the festival is still turning a profit. So if that's the case, then, and they're comfortable with a smaller profit, then it works. I don't think that the Spring Breakers are coming back in 2027.
They're not.
I think that the goal for South by to be sustainable is to say, we're going to do this thing. It's going to be a cool event that is a little bit smaller. It's going to attract Hollywood talent more than it attracts any other kind of talent. And the moment that the conditions are right for it to rise the way that it did, 15 years ago, will still be here. And then we can take advantage of that. That makes sense to me. And and then it's out of everybody's hands except for, a lot of factors that aren't controlled in Austin or Los Angeles.
A bit of a dial back. Yeah, I definitely felt the difference this year. But, it's been changing every year. I agree with you. Like peak South by was 2016 to 2019 for me. And those were just crazy, crazy years. You know what I mean? It was like we had lost Fader Fort, but we still had that kookiness and that craziness that you just, like, you see. A good example of this is that I saw Bun B on the corner of 6th and 35, like at the liquor store making a music video one year. It's like, we're probably not going to get that back.
But you don't know. I mean,
but you don't. Yeah, I like the idea of just like taking a tick and dialing it back a little bit and laying in wait. I do like that idea. I do like that, just to come back when things are a little less chaotic.
Yeah, or more chaotic, but
or more chaotic.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think that. And I mean, I don't think that it's even like a choice. I think that that's what they've done. I just don't know if they've realized that that's what they've done. But I think that is the only path that exists. Is they cannot will the people into spending again or to coming again. Yeah. They can put on a good event and make sure that people are having a really good experience, so that when those conditions exist, this is where they want to be.
I don't know why I wasn't thinking about just like all of the ways that the outside world has an effect on South by. I wasn't even thinking about just like capitalism and people not spending money. I wasn't even thinking about that. So thank you for the perspective. I appreciate it. Now I'm going to be talking to my friends about it all day.
Thanks for having me. This was a fun conversation.
Of course. That's all for today here on CityCast Austin. You can find links to Dan's reporting in our show notes. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your friend that you went to South by Southwest with? Rate the show, leave us a review, and of course, subscribe to our CityCast Austin newsletter. And if you really love us and you like what we do and you want us to keep doing it, support us. Become a neighbor today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye, y'all.